Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting edition of Minecraft on the Margin, where we use economic principles in Minecraft to understand the real world around us. Here I am, Mr. Boogle, ready to join you again today. We've talked a little bit about wants, needs, scarcity, trade offs, opportunity costs, blah, 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 blah. We've talked about all kinds of fun stuff. Today I want to talk to you about something called resources. Okay, or factors of production is another name for it. So we've talked about how there are stuff around us, and we use all this stuff around us to satisfy our wants and our needs as far as we understand those two terms. Here's something that I want to tack onto this is just kind of a little side note as before we get started, and that's that resources don't just exist as a resource. Okay, this tree over here, it exists independent of me calling it a resource, but it isn't a resource until I see some valuable use for it. So there's lots of stuff around us that I don't really think of as resources until someone finds something valuable that they can do with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about four different categories of resources or four different categories of factors of production. We're going to demonstrate what they are, and we're going to relate that back to you in the real world. So here we go. The first thing is natural resources, or what we're going to call land. Economists will just use the generic term land. And really what we're talking about is all natural resources in their raw and untouched state. So these trees, this dirt, that sugar cane back there, the water, that wild pig hanging out over there, these are all natural resources. They're raw, they're untouched, but they're all things that I know I can do something with. So I see a value to them. There's something that I could get. Now that pig, I'm going to leave it alone for now because I just want to go and build some tools. And in order to do that, I need to get some wood. So I'm going to go do that first. I'm just going to come over here. And I've got a raw natural resource in this tree trunk right here. And I can't just say, hey, I want to use you. Become wood. Become a resource in my hand. I have to actually do something with the resource. So what I'm going to do, you guys are all too familiar with, is I'm going to start chopping at this piece of wood. I have to apply my physical activity or my labor in order to get that wood. Okay, we talked before about scarcity and how it motivates human action. Well, now I've got these resources that are here in front of me, and I want to use them. So that action that I'm applying to them is something that we're going to call labor. Now, before you think that all labor is physical, like I'm doing right now, where I'm doing very physical labor. Okay, I'm doing computer-generated physical labor. Yeah. But if I were doing this in real life, chopping down trees can be very, very, very hard work. We tend to stigmatize physical labor as though it's the only kind of real work, when economically speaking, we know that's not true, right? There are a lot of things that I can do with my mind that are valuable. If I'm an accountant, for example, right? Being an accountant is not very physical work, but it does require me to use my mind. It requires me to think, right? So there's a lot of other different types of labor other than just physical labor. All right, I'm actually going to go down here for some low-hanging wood, low-hanging fruit. So I can do what we call mental labor. So a lot of thinking. This is a lot of what, intellectual jobs, a lot of white-collar jobs are less physical, and they're more intellectual jobs. And a lot of times we have different tools that make those jobs easier. We'll talk about those later on. But there's other kinds of labor that are not physical, and they're not necessarily mental. So think, for example, if you had like a friend who was going through a really rough time, and so you're trying to be there and provide your friend with some emotional support, right? So you're listening to what they have to say, you're comforting them when they need comforted, whatever. That can really wear you out, right? It can be a drain on you. And so I like to point out to people that there's other kinds of labor, such as emotional labor, right? Because It's still me doing work, but I'm using my emotions to do the work. I'm offering that kind of emotional support. So it's another type of labor out there that you can think of. So yeah, physical labor for sure, mental labor, and then we've also got, maybe some emotional labor. I'm sure there's some other ones out there that we could think of as well. All right, so I've gone through and I've interacted with my environment using my physical labor, and I have gathered up da 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 a bunch of wood. Ooh, I've already got some. So you can see when I take this wood, and again applying my labor to it, I can turn this wood into some oak wood planks. So now I'm changing the nature of this resource. Okay, it's still wood, but I can do different things with the oak wood planks that I couldn't do with just the oak wood. And the same thing with these sticks. I can do different things with these sticks that I can't do with the oak wood planks. So by applying my labor to this raw natural resource, I'm able to actually change the nature of the resource. I am able to turn it into what we would call a capital resource. Okay, so I'm actually going to take some of these wood planks here, and I'm going to make myself a nice little crafting table. I kind of like this little scenic view over here. So let's go, let's plop our crafting table down right there. And now with some of these other resources, I can take some sticks, and I can make some other capital resources. So a lot of times when we talk about tools, any kind of man-made resource is going to be a capital good, a capital resource. Anytime you hear people talk about money as capital, well, that's true, right? They're not necessarily saying that money is the only kind of capital, but that money is a type of capital. And as a type of capital, we can say money is a man-made resource, right? We can talk about things that could be used as money that exist that are raw natural resources, but the very concept of money itself is an idea created by mankind. It's a man-made resource. Okay, so now I've got a couple tools here. These tools are quick little capital goods. And now the last thing, you'll notice it's getting dark on me right here. Got this sugar cane, and it is starting to rain. You know what? I happen to know that there's a little bit of a cave over here by this lava flow. So I'm going to run over there and see if we can't get out of this rain just a little bit. Not that the rain is actually like getting me wet and cold or a threat to my life or health or anything. It's just that when I'm recording, the rain is loud. It looks like someone may have been here before. Which reminds me, these torches, yeah, capital good, right? They're a capital resource. So let me show you something really quickly here, and I'm going to type this out, so hopefully you can see my little notes here. Right, what is 2 times 2? Well, 2 times 2 equals 4. Okay, well, that's kind of silly. Why on earth am I doing little simple math formulas when talking about the factors of production? Oh, because when you solve a multiplication problem, what's the answer called? The answer is called the product. And what are the 2 numbers called that you multiply together? They're called the factors. So this literally is like a math lesson here. Economically speaking, these are the factors of production. So I'm taking my resources, I'm combining them into new and useful ways, and I'm creating new stuff with it, right? So we've talked about land, all natural resources. We've talked about labor, both physical, mental, and emotional labor. And now we're looking at capital resources. In your life, technology, all the technology you're looking at is a capital resource of some kind or another. But there's other kinds of capital resources as well, right? Like your clothing. I mean, you don't like get up in the morning and go just like grab a bale of cotton and say, I'm going to wear this to school. No, someone had to use their intellect, their labor, and apply their effort to that cotton to turn it into a t-shirt, to turn it into denim jeans, to turn it into whatever you wanted to wear to school that day. They've turned it into capital goods, capital resources that you can then use to satisfy your wants and needs. Now, real quickly, there's this idea here that labor and capital goods are in conflict. Okay, so just to demonstrate what we're talking about here and the difference between capital resources and labor and the conflict between the two of them, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, see this wall? I'm going to dig into it with just my hand. All right, no big deal, right? It's dirt. I can dig into it. No big deal with my hand. But what about some of this stone over here? Is that quite as easy to mine with just my hand? This is taking forever, mining this dirt or mining the stone with my hand. Okay, we did it, but it took forever. Now let's try it with a tool or a capital good. So I'm going to take my wooden pickaxe. And now let's mine. Oh, that was pretty quick. And I can go in here and I can mine even deeper. And I can keep mining. And you see how much more efficient my labor is when I use a capital resource. Okay. So it's not that labor and capital resources are in conflict with each other. It's not that capital resources necessarily entirely replace labor. Capital resources are used to make labor more efficient. Okay, so there's this kind of goofy old story. Milton Friedman over in China, and this was during the days of the Great Cultural Revolution when the communists are in control over there, and they were like, oh yeah, rah rah socialism. It wasn't communism, it was socialism. Communist Party, socialist economic principles. And they're showing off this awesome project, and they're trying to show, hey, man, look at this cool ditch that we're digging. Look at this cool canal that we're digging. And it's just hundreds of people out there digging with shovels, right? And it's Milton Friedman, who's this American economist, is looking at it. This is absolutely ridiculous. Why are they digging this canal with shovels? Like, wouldn't it be so much more effective or efficient to give them heavy equipment like land movers and backhoes and earth, things like that? And this guy from the premier of China or some big economic planning bigwig over there says, well, yeah, but think about what the people would do. Think about how many jobs would be destroyed if we were to take away their shovels, if we were to replace them with heavy equipment. Then there wouldn't be jobs for all these people to do. And Professor Friedman says, well, if this is supposed to be about labor, why are you even giving them shovels? Why not give them spoons and make them dig it by hand? So it's just kind of a silly idea, silly notion that capital resources necessarily replace labor. They don't. They make labor more efficient. They make it so you're able to get more out of fewer inputs of labor. So it's not necessarily saying that there's going to be less labor, but just saying that the labor that you use is going to be more effective and more efficient. All right, so guys, we are kind of wrapping up. We're out of time here. I am going to close up, but before I do, I want to point out that there's actually one more factor of production. I don't want to talk about it in this episode today. I want to give it its own special, unique episode, and that is the idea of entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is something cool and awesome and innovative and creative, and it's different from traditional labor, and we'll talk about that in a future episode. Thanks. Hope you've enjoyed this. We haven't really got much. I kind of got a little bit of a cave dug out. Super cool. Awesome. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next time.